can you tell us some sexy things about polarity? We actually haven't talked about polarity that much on the podcast. Could you explain a little bit about it and what it can do for a relationship? And then I'd love to hear a few things about conscious relationship before we wrap.
Yeah, so I think it's worth mentioning again that from my perspective, really deep polarity or matching each other's energy, being in deeper pleasure, it takes place when we're able to clear this clutter, this internal clutter from within, right? When we're able to really be with the unresolved wounds or the unresolved trauma, the unprocessed trauma as individuals, but also as a couple. When we can start being safe harbors of truth for each other and meet each other in non-judgmental ways and with compassion, polarity starts to increase. So that we're more sensitive to each other's skin, we're more sensitive to each other's touch, each other's scent, each other's movement with each other as whether it's lovemaking and sexuality or whether it's just, simple affection like holding your partner's hand and looking at them in their eyes and just saying, I really appreciate you. I love you. I care for you. Thank you. Just thank you. Just that, and it's sincere and it's deep. All of that becomes more accessible in a more profound way when we clear that clutter. Right. So we're talking about polarity. We're talking about expansion. We're talking about coming together we're talking about sex magic, but we're talking about creating mystery and magic, basically creating, I don't know. What can we create? I don't know. That's the whole point. You don't want to know because if you know, then you're not really creating it. You're manufacturing it. So I'm saying, hey, get two really clean vessels coming together. What can happen? Now, I'm not talking about a purity of cleanliness, of spiritual cleanliness where you're completely free of your trauma per se, but I'm talking about the real chunky stuff, the rocks, the heavy stuff. You really have a deeper relationship with that. There's a deeper level of self-worth and self-love. You're not coming from a place of insecurity and needing to prove yourself or needing to pretend to be someone that you're not. You're really just raw with each other. The big fears that you've got, abandonment, intimacy, rejection, they've settled down. What can you create from that? Through the act of sexual union, through the act of touching another's erogenous zones, wherever they may be, right? The erogenous parts of our body. It could be our neck, it could be in our inner elbow, it could be our fingertips. It could be just how can we explore each other in really pleasurable, beautiful ways? And look, there'll be seasons in your relationship, and definitely had this with Christine, where it's not exactly that what I'm describing. There've been seasons when it is that. And this is an important part. I mentioned that on purpose because what can you do? Who can you be when it's not in that season? Because that's not desirable for it to not be in that season. But who can you be to yourself and to each other? What needs to be unpacked? I'm not talking about doing deep inner work, grueling work, maybe, but more so kindness, affection. That's part of polarity. Right? And of course, we can go deeper into leading and being led and what does that look like and when does that look like? These are also personal agreements that we have as a couple and as individuals in the relationship. And it's also an open communication because who I am today is not who I was, even from a perspective of polarity 5 years ago. I've grown a hell of a lot. I know Christine has too, a hell of a lot. So we have to change the dynamics of our polarity and the dynamics of our relationship. And that's not always easy. It requires effort, like a fucking lot of effort. And so we have to decide as partners, I think all of us do, is the relationship worth the effort? And so for me personally, to speak openly, yes, right now in my life, it absolutely is. I want to continue persevering with that.
Beautiful. And what are, let's say when couples come to you for support in their relationship, what are like the top 3 guiding principles you give them to have the healthiest, most vibrant relationship?
Yeah. I also want to answer or respond to your question around conscious relating. You did ask that. So I would say if I was to simply put it, for me, conscious relating is when both people are very deliberate about the choices they make in the relationship and out of the relationship. But importantly, they're not just there for themselves. They're not just there for each other, but they're also there for those around them. So the question that could be asked is the quality of this relationship or is this relationship impacting people around me in healthy ways, like my parents, my children, my friends, my community? If I'm a quote unquote influencer or I'm a leader of a company, is it impacting them? So the quality of the relationship that we hold in our polarity, in our romance, in our intimacy, in our sexuality, is it making those around us better? That to me is really the crux of conscious relating. And then of course, so many other things like, willingness to be in conflict, healthy agreements that are made, how we do conflict, non-judgment, compassion, really meeting each other with love. To your question around, I guess, 3 tools or three ways of being that can be very useful for couples. Like the thing is, I have a perspective and I have many perspectives, I guess, but I also just want to give a shout out to the Gottman Institute as an example. I mean, I've been at this for, many, many decades and they have amazing tools. So go there as well. But I would say this: self-awareness, curiosity, play. So let me break that down a little bit. And let me add something else, agreements. You need to be self-aware. That requires doing your inner work. You want to be curious about your partner. In other words, you want to meet them with non-judgment and compassion as often as you can, and yourself. You want to play. You need to have fun. I know a lot of your business, a lot of your message is really built on play and fun and joy and really accessing that. Do it as a couple, do it separately. Yeah. Right. And you have to have agreements. That means you're going to have to communicate with each other. You're going to require conscious communication, healthy communication, NVC, imago, whatever it may be. You're going to need to learn to communicate in really effective ways to forge agreements based on your identity and your identity in and out of the relationship, who you are, who you want to be and where it's going. And that needs to be assessed, or that needs to be spoken to and revisited on a regular basis. How regular? Up to you. There's no quantitative objective measurement for that.